Hello, welcome to today's episode of The BIM Student. I'm your host Chetna Chauhan. In our last episode, we talked about collaboration, the most important ingredient in BIM adoption. How about taking that conversation to next level and discuss about a few tools that facilitate communication and collaboration right from a BIM authoring tool? One such tool that I've personally used is BIM Track. While most people think it's an issue tracking tool, I feel it's a progress tracking tool. And why do I say that? Well, my today's guest, Carl Storms, will be the perfect person to explain that. Carl is a technical solutions lead for BIM Track. He draws his experience of 20 years from architecture, engineering and construction projects and shares a practical and well-rounded understanding of BIM with his clients. He assists ECO community with adoption of design technology and BIM processes through implementation, instruction, mentoring, webinar and global speaking engagements. As someone who truly enjoys the process of building information modeling, Carl spreads his love for all things BIM via his social media handles or by co-hosting some of the famous eco industry podcasts like BIM Thoughts, the Built Academy podcast, the Simply Complex podcast, and Blueprints. I think I've said enough, and now we should listen from Carl himself about his journey and everything about BIM Track. Welcome to my podcast, Carl. I'm so glad we are able to do this, and I'm so looking forward to our discussion. Welcome to my podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to chatting with you, chatting a little bit about BIM Track and whatever else you got to toss at me today.
Oh, I have a lot. Wait for it. Now, let's first of all know a little bit more about you and BIM Track, your journey. What have you been doing all these years?
That's a good question. And I've been doing a lot all of these years. I've been in the AEC industry for a little over 20 years now, and I've done a little bit of everything in that time. My colleagues like to say well-rounded. Residential, architectural. I've spent some time on the general contractor side doing BIM and VDC. I've taught Revit at the local community college, and I even worked with a reseller. And when you work for a reseller in the AEC industry, you do a little bit of everything. I traveled around doing training and teaching things like Dynamo and Navisworks and Revit, and that's where I really got started doing the conference circuit. So that's where I got my love of speaking at places like Built and AU. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to these days, working with BIM Track. We do a lot of client demonstrations, but working to get back on the conference circuit. Hopefully next year we'll do more live events, but looking forward to meeting in person again, that's for sure.
I so wish, man. I've been missing that for a long time. I'm missing looking at people in person. So yeah, I hope, next year. Also, let's talk more about BIM Track. I've used BIM Track, and I would want to hear it from your mouth. What is BIM Track? What does it do for those who live under the rock and still don't know what BIM Track is?
Sure. For a quick overview of what BIM Track is a cloud-based communication platform. What does that mean? Well, a lot of people come across BIM Track to use in a coordination process for tracking issues. And really keep in mind that an issue can be anything you want it to be, my little air quotes there. Most people think, there's a hole in the drywall, a missing column, maybe a window needs to be replaced, that's an issue. But we find that once people start getting into the program using BIM Track, that they can find they can use an issue to be anything, whether it's task management, drawing review, project handover. As long as you want it to be visible, accountable, and shareable, we can make it an issue. And that's what we are. That's BIM Track. We try to stay sort of focused, stay in our lane, as you will, keeping with communications and issue tracking. And the real goal is to make it easy for you. We don't want you to have to learn a complicated new software or process. We don't want to change the way that you do your communication and coordination now. We just want to make it a little easier for you and make sure that the information you need is where you need it. Revit, Navisworks, Tekla, ArchiCAD, wherever you're working.
Okay. Yeah. So one myth that most of the people in the industry have is BIM Track is a Revit plugin. It is not, right?
That is correct. I mean, we absolutely have a Revit plugin, but we go far beyond the Autodesk ecosystem, and it's not just a Revit plugin. That is absolutely true.
Right, right. So my personal interaction with BIM Track and its usability was back in 2017, 18, when we were using for a few of our projects. And it was the same thing, the issue tracking and issue assigning. And I used it particularly in conjunction with my Navisworks clash detections and assigning issues and assigning clashes to particular parties. Now, one thing that I can vouch for is that it was an amazing platform where everybody on the project could see in one place what are the issues and where and who's assigned to what issues. Some companies have also gone a step further and integrated BIM Track with Slack and or with their own inbuilt bots to like something that inbuilt and which is very, very customized to their company. So when companies do that, does BIM Track help them, support them in that process?
Absolutely. And that's a good point you bring up. So we're just one shy of 30 integrations that we have now, always expanding. So it's grown quite a bit from 2017, but we do sit on top of a completely open API. Okay. So that means, like you say, if somebody wants to set it up so when they get a notification, it gets sent to Slack, they can do that. And we have a developer channel or people that are playing in the API channel, I should call it, because it's not just developers, where we have us actually on Slack, where you can access the developers, you can ask questions specifically to do with the API. So we absolutely help them out along the way. And it works both ways as well. And that's the beauty of an open API is not everyone thinks of the same problems or more importantly, the same solutions to problems. So when you have an open API and people are doing their own way, they think about it a certain way, we learn from them as well. So that's the great thing about open source and open API is that, everyone gets to share that. So to make a long answer to your short question, absolutely we help them, but I think it goes both ways.
Okay, so if a company has an in-house development potential, we can coordinate with BIM Track and have let's say, a bot developed for. Every time I open Revit, there is a pop-up to my username that you have been assigned these issues, go to BIM Track and look at these issues. I'm trying to make it very simple for a layperson, somebody who is also very new to the BIM process, that this can be usability. This can be one of the usabilities. Tell me more about your DAS integration, something that you've just launched like a week ago. What is your DAS integration?
Absolutely. So basically what we're meaning is data analytics as a service. And so what that means is for a while now, we've had an integration with Microsoft Power BI. Mm-hmm. What the new integration or version 2.0 that just came out recently is it's a complete turnkey solution. So what that means is we found a lot of our clients that like the idea of having a dashboard, like the idea of having a very in-depth dashboard with all of the information they want about all of their BIM Track products, but they don't necessarily want to have to create it. They don't necessarily want to have to keep it up to date. Mm-hmm. So what this new integration does is it allows you to have this turnkey solution. So once you've purchased your BIM Track Hub, for an additional fee, you get access to this turnkey solution. So essentially that means that you can share it with whoever you want on your team, and they have access to all of the data that you could ever imagine or want for your products. All of your BIM Track data. I should be specifying. We don't necessarily know what your Revit model analytics are. We're not covering that aspect, but all of your BIM Track data. So things like how long to close issues, how many different subtrades have issues, all of that sort of thing. And it's on a very powerful Power BI platform. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, a lot of people, they get Power BI, they know how to move around in it, but they don't necessarily want to be the ones creating those back of house things and doing that. So that's where our data analytics as a service has come into play. And like I say, it's very new to us. We've had great success with it so far. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. So I'm myself now trying my hands at Power BI. So I think I'm going to try this. One thing that amazes me about the industry that we are in, and we are every morning when I get up, I have a new challenge to solve. I think we are in the phase where the technology is developing. It's not at a level of where other industries are, for example, automotive or even banking or stuff. But I feel very fortunate that I'm part of a process that is getting there. We are getting where these people are right now. So I find it very, very amazing when I talk to, people like yourself who who are actually the providers of this technology. Okay, now I know there is an issue tracking system within BIM 360, right? And other cloud collaboration platforms. Why should I come to you and get a BIM Track plugin?
Well, that's a great question. And we do have a lot of people that ask that. We already have a tool in our slate of tools that will do this, or more accurately do something similar to this. So, why should we pay a little extra to get data access to BIM Track? And a lot of times when we have that question and we walk them through a demo, it explains itself. But a couple of the high level reasons why people access BIM Track either instead of other products, and we do have a lot of people that actually use both BIM 360 and BIM Track at the same time. And the reason being is, say for example, using BIM 360 or Autodesk Construction Cloud, as I guess is what we're calling it now, for saving your Revit files in the cloud. So you're doing your cloud sharing, you're using it, you can work from anywhere. There's some real benefits to that, to be able to have access to your Revit model wherever you want, and to be able to share that with your team in a cloud-based platform. However, you may be working with a structural engineer that's using Tekla, or maybe you have a specialty contractor that's doing their design work in ArchiCAD. Maybe you're working inside of Celibri. So we're getting more and more a global workforce all around the world working in different products, not just the Autodesk ecosystem. So BIM Track allows you to tie into the product that you want, do what you need to do in the product that you want, Celibri, Tekla, ArchiCAD, you name it. And you can create your issues there and you can share it with everyone in the team. Whereas when you're working with issues inside of BIM 360, you're kind of stuck with Navisworks or ArchiCAD, certainly not ArchiCAD, Revit, where you're making those solutions in place. So that's one of the reasons why we find people will use both in a parallel platform. The other reason that we've seen people using BIM Track is the ease of use. As I mentioned earlier, we don't really want you to change your workflow. It's a very intuitive platform, as you know from using it. You're not going to spend a week learning it. You're going to spend an hour or two, and everyone gets on board. And we find that once you use it, you like it and you stick with it. So that's why people come to BIM Track.
Yeah, I would say I took more time learning how to use Snapchat than I use because also I'm at the scale where, the band where millennials start. So I'm right at the top of that scale. So I'm still not very good with most of these social media platforms. So when a very younger, 15-year-old young cousin comes to me and she says that, oh, you should be on Snapchat and all, I'm like, well, what do I do with this? But with BIM Track, I was able to figure it out right away. I was like, okay, this is easy peasy. So yeah, I think ease of use is something that has my vote for sure. I haven't used it for any other platform other than Revit and Navisworks. So I'm waiting to use it on the next project. And I also hope people use other BIM authoring tools other than Revit. I do want to see more people in our industry using other platforms. Do you think we have enough people using, and this is not the BIM Track question, but do you know if there are a big chunk of people who are using a non-Autodesk BIM authoring?
Outside of North America or inside North America?
Inside of North. I know there are people outside of North America.
Yeah. There are definitely people that do it. And from my time working with Imaginet doing consulting, you saw all sorts of things. But in North America, Revit and Autodesk in general have a big chunk. And it depends on what you're doing. There's that small group that's very loyal to Macintosh products. So Vectorworks is very important for them. We got some people that are just always trying different things. So you have BricsCAD, people that move to that because it's, you did 2D, 3D, and 4D all in a DWG format. So people have moved to that. And ArchiCAD, that was the very first thing I learned before I even learned AutoCAD. I learned ArchiCAD. And, I just got back into that again recently. It's a very powerful product, but it's what you're used to and what you know. So there's definitely some people using that as well, but we're definitely an AutoCAD nation here in North America for sure. Not AutoCAD, Autodesk, although there's a lot of AutoCAD users still too.
Yeah, there is a startup in India. They'll be on my podcast soon, but they are doing a very AI-based BIM authoring tool. I'm trying to get them on my podcast sooner. But they are very, very specific to residential, just for residential. I would say more than AI, they start with generative design option for a residence. So you put in your requirements, and you get like few floor plans, and then you pick up the floor plans, you develop them. And I think Asia has been like mix of all the tools. Like I know there are people that are very Autodesk loyal, and then there are people who want to try everything on the plate. I want to know the geography where BIM Track is very popular these days. I know it's like here, I worked in Canada all this while, so I know you're very popular here. But let's talk about demographics. What are parts of the world are you very popular at?
Yeah, so we are used all over the world. We're in 40 plus countries now. But our big demographics are, North America, Canada, and US. We have a lot of people in Europe, Scandinavia particularly, and we're very big in Australia as well. And then between Middle East and Asia, we're also slowly moving up there. But yeah, the North America area, Europe, particularly Scandinavia, and Australia, New Zealand, very popular.
Okay, so I think just taking some time away from BIM Track discussion, let's come to our next section, which is Impossible Questionnaire. I mean, I'm really enjoying this discussion and we'll take it forward, but this is the time for our Impossible Questionnaire. And I'm going to be asking you 3 questions. These questions are designed with an intent that the guests cannot answer them. But if you can, it's amazing. There's no gift basket to be worn.
Oh, darn.
But I mean, I could do like a class for you, or I can't do anything else. But let's see. Okay, so first impossible question for you is, this is going to be simple. So in a staircase design, what is the number of treads going to be equal to? Riser plus 1, riser minus 1, treads in the flight, or none of above? Risers in the flight or none of above?
Riser minus 1.
Yeah.
One of my many jobs, I worked at a stair company for 5 years, so that one was easy.
Ah, okay. I should have known that. How good are you with vernacular terms?
Oh, that one I'm not very good at, so that would be a good one to stump me with.
Okay. So what is the vernacular term for framework? And your options are espinada, rebocada, balancas, and barranquilla.
I'm going to go with balancas because I was told if you didn't know, you always picked C.
Oh my goodness, you're correct!
Yay!
Oh my goodness, you're the only guest who's answered 2 questions correct. Now,
all right.
I'm nervous for the next one. I have to pick a really, really hard one here now. Okay. What is the melting point of aluminum? 658. So this is in degrees Celsius. So 658 degrees Celsius, 250 degrees Celsius, 700 degrees Celsius, or 472 degrees Celsius.
Well, I don't know this, but I'm going to talk it out. So aluminum is a fairly soft material.
Mm-hmm.
We use it for a lot of things. I know you need to be very careful with it when you're welding it, which means that if you have too high of a temperature, it's going to melt. So it's definitely not the first one. It's definitely not the 200 one. So I'm going to say the 400 and something.
No, it's actually 658 degrees Celsius.
2 out of 3 ain't bad, I think Meatloaf said.
Oh, it's good, man. It's really good. You're one of the highest scorers in this Impossible Questionnaire, at least for season 2.
All right.
So yeah, I think you know what? It's easier for this season. Last season I had 5 questions.
Yes, 3 is easier than 5.
Yes. I did it to 2 or 3 this time because I was like 5 is getting too much. Some of the guests would be like, man, she's kind of harassing us, bringing us on a podcast. And, yeah, coming to the last part of this podcast, let's focus on a rose, a bud, and a thorn. And coming from the BIM world, with all the years of experience that you have, what do you think is a rose, which is the benefit for today, bud, which is the benefit or an opportunity for tomorrow, and thorn, which could be a challenge or something that hindering our progress when we are using BIM Track?
Sure. So for a Rose, the benefit for today using BIM and BIM Track, this works for both of them, is the fact that we're really starting to see a bigger adoption for interoperability, so that we have the idea of using things like IFC and BCF, OpenBIM in general, so that we're not all stuck in the same environment, and that we can start sharing the data through things like ICF, IFC, and BCF. And I think that's something that we have today that, even a couple years ago, we couldn't have said that was a benefit for today, but that people are looking outside of their own sphere. So I think that's definitely a Rose. So the bud, what's for tomorrow is the ability to look at the data. So being able to move past not disciplines, but types of formats. So whether it's a DWG or RFT or whatever, we're able to share the data. I think that's where the future is heading with BIM. And I think with BIM Track, we're going to keep expanding what we can deal with as far as staying focused with OpenBIM, but expanding our partners in our ecosystem through our development and through other people developing as well. Mm-hmm. And for the thorn, the part that's tough, that is going to be getting people to try new things. It's the oldest answer. It's something that we hear all the time, but it's still tough. I have something that will do that. I haven't tried it. I've always done it this way. The worst answer you can ever get, but it's still very tough. And some people, it doesn't matter, what you say, what you do, that still becomes the answer, and they want no part of your product or of BIM. There's still a lot of people that are doing just 2D out there. And when we get that answer, it's the way that I've always done it. You just have to let them know that, hey, if it works for you, that's fine. We're here for you. When things change, we'll come and talk to you with the new features, and maybe at some point you'll see things differently, and we're happy to help.
Right. Yeah, that answer I get at least twice a day because I make a lot of calls, connections virtually, and try to talk about what BIMWise can do for them. I think this is something that we all face in our industry, even in a company that has been really good on the technology path. Even there, if you're on the technology side of things, you would hear it at least every once in a while from everybody. I've done it like this all this while. Why do I need to change? And anyways, this is something which has always been up for discussion, that why do we need to change? And having said that, how do we get BIM Track? And how is BIM Track helping the industry become better?
Sure. So to start with, how do we get BIM Track? That's easy right here on top of my ear. You can see it says bimtrack.co. You can just go to the website and just start from the landing page, and you can get a free demo. You can try it out. You can get it. All of that's available. So just hit up bimtrack.co. One of the things that BIM Track's doing is, we're a very strong supporter in OpenBIM and open source. So that Open API, using IFC as our viewer, BCF as we're doing. And we are a big fan of supporting like students, people coming up. We support the Built Academy, other initiatives like that. So the idea is that not only are we trying to make our art better in that, but we're reaching out to all those that are young, that are coming up. As they say, the future is where everything's going to change and get better. So we like to make sure that we're helping them out along the way as well.
Okay, that is great. You know what, Carl? This has been one of the most crisp podcasts I've ever had. I mean, literally, you answered everything so on point. And I'm like, what do I ask next? It has been a really, really good discussion with you. I just want to let everybody else who's listening to this podcast know that Carl also hosts and co-hosts other podcasts. Go listen to them. I am a big fan, the BIM Thoughts and the Built Academy podcast. I would encourage everybody to listen in. Other amazing co-hosts who are as amazing as Carl is. I'm a big fan of those podcasts. And a podcaster to a podcaster. I really feel you guys are doing an amazing job, both with BIM Track and keeping everybody, on the same platform, and to track not just the issues, but track the progress. I say track the progress of the project, because when issues come and issues resolve, project gets better. So you guys are doing a great job with that. And you, Carl, are doing an amazing job being the speaker, being the co-host. I'm going to bring you back for I'm planning a panel discussion on my podcast. I'm planning to bring you and other people from other coordination platforms, and I want to have a battle on my podcast soon.
I would be happy to come back, and I would also be remiss if I didn't include I forgot Simply Podcast Pod as well with Marcelo Scamblori. So he's the star, but yes, I help out on that one as well for my podcast.
Oh, okay, that is great. I haven't started listening to that. Another thing on my list now. So thank you so much for your time, Carl. I'm so glad we did this. And till we meet next time.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
Okay.